I witnessed crimes against humanity that could so overarched the things I was seeing in labor and delivery that I couldn't stay on track any longer.
Please tell us, what kind of violations did you see during the COVID?
It was everything. The first signs that really made me uncomfortable were the fact that we were being propagandized on the media. So even in the hospital, all the healthcare providers were being terrified by what we were seeing on the news and by all of the things that were being put out on social media about how dangerous COVID was, about how many people were dying. And so staff members right out the gate were really terrified. And so that really set the stage for us to not have the tools to properly analyze the true risks and benefits of both the protocols and the true risks of the virus itself. And I'll tell you, for me, there are several reasons why I was immune to those things coming out the gate. My background is really important in this scenario because I was homeschooled. And it is my strong belief that being homeschooled arms you with a lot of mental tools and tactics that public school children don't have access to. So growing up, I wasn't ever forced into the standard model of education where, you take a test and if you don't perform well, then you suck at this subject. And I wasn't told that, I had to fit into this box of what it meant to be smart or do well. I was supported in actually discovering what I was good at and supported in feeling like I had the skills to take care of whatever it was in the world around me that might impact me. But most importantly, the most important thing about that homeschool education, I remember in high school, and it was basically a spitting image of what took place during COVID. In high school, I remember feeling like, gosh, I wish I could go to school because I'm not getting what these other kids are getting, and it's scary and it sucks and I'm different and like all these things. But at the end of the day, what that did for me is it gave me the tools and the skills to really identify, well, hey, just because you don't fit in and you're not like the other kids, you still have your own value and self-worth. And so that conversation, that inner dialogue really taught me to recognize that my value and self-worth didn't have to be based on the acceptance of my peers. Right. And I witnessed that with my classmates, my high school friends. I would watch them give away their value and self-worth for the acceptance of their peers. And the exact same thing happened in the hospital during COVID. So I saw it basically on replay. I looked around and I noticed like, wow, I'll have conversations with my colleagues in the back room and we'll be talking about these COVID protocols and how they're causing these patients to go into organ failure. But they won't say anything about it because they're too afraid of getting rejected by their peers. They're too afraid of losing their jobs to stand up and step into their authentic knowing, which is that our protocols were killing people. So the protocols for COVID, people say their loved ones died of COVID. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it went down. People actually died in the hospital from the protocols. So we knew in March of 2020, there was one of the most published and prestigious ICU doctors in the United States. His name was Dr. Pierre Corey. He came out right out the gate, him and his colleague, I forget his name, but there were a couple of doctors nationally known for their expertise in intensive care. So that's like dealing with people who are about to die. And they came out screaming like, hey, everyone who has COVID is responding extraordinarily well to high doses of IV steroids. And of course, so it made perfect sense. I looked at their data and I looked at what I know because I worked ICU. I know the whole hospital. when a patient is going into an inflammatory response, so that's something people should know about COVID. COVID, whatever it was, it caused more inflammation in the human body than we'd ever seen from any infectious disease in my career as a nurse working for the hospitals. So that was over 10 years. So, and we measure that by labs. There's a lab called a CRP. And you can clearly see how much inflammation is in the body when a person is under attack. You know, their immune system is under attack. So we had CRP levels that were more than double that I had ever seen. I mean, they were out the roof. And so because I knew that, and then I heard these ICU intensivists that were nationally known for their expertise come out and say, we need to be giving all these patients high-dose steroids because immediately their bodies would respond. And of course they would. Steroids are an anti-inflammatory. They correct the inflammatory response. So that was March of 2020. That was before the vaccines, before anything happened. We knew that we had an effective tool for managing the inflammation of COVID. And the CDC and the leadership for our health industries in the United States completely shut that down. So that's when they started labeling Pierre Corey. And that was just what? Like, this guy has been nationally known for his whole career for his ability to, brainstorm and come up with solutions for really intensive situations rapidly. Like, he had already made a name for himself in the United States medical organizations because of his expertise. And so, it just didn't make any sense. Like, how can they censor this man who clearly doesn't have an agenda? He's clearly offering a solution that A, makes sense, B, actually works. And he has the background and expertise to make that recommendation. So why is the medical, why are the medical agencies ignoring him? So there we are, right, through the first year of COVID, not administering high-dose IV steroids. And that, to me, so when I analyze that from my medical background and the oath that I took and my duty as a medical practitioner, A, to do no harm, but B, to save the lives of my patients. And now we're being forced to withhold a treatment that I know would save their lives. So we were withholding steroids. We were also withholding nebulizer treatments. So
what is that?
When patients are hospitalized in acute respiratory distress, they are always prescribed nebulization treatments. So what they do is they use this drug. So there are several different ones. They hook them up to a machine that turns them into a mist.
Okay.
And then you can breathe it in through your sinuses and immediately vasodilates your bronchioles. So it takes...
I know what it's like because I had asthma.
Yes.
15 years.
So it's the same basic thing, except for you sit there with the mask on and you just breathe it in for a couple of minutes. And then they come back and they do those treatments like every 4 hours in the hospital when people... So before COVID, anyone who had respiratory distress or any kind of lung inflammatory disorder, they would be given a nebulization treatment every 4 hours. It was a no-brainer. It was like, of course. And I mean, you don't even have to ask for that stuff. I mean, you can ask for it, but the answer's always been yes. So during COVID, for some reason, and I still can't make sense of this, the CDC came out and said, oh, well, we're not going to allow the hospitals to do nebulization treatments because we don't want to risk getting the healthcare providers sick. And if we nebulize coronavirus, it might cause the staff to become exposed to the virus because it's in a nebulized form. So
does it make sense?
So my response to that is,
guys, there is one issue that I have to address. I believe YouTube is going to demonetize this video and even try to erase it. So it's crucial, if you are still watching this, if you're still seeing this right now, please like this video, share with all your friends, peers, and loved ones. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already, and please leave a comment below. Guys, I don't have any sponsors. I'm not trying to sell you NFTs, crypto scams, and everything in between. So please, your contribution, your free contribution by subscribing, liking, sharing, and commenting below helps my channel a lot. And please watch this video till the very end. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. But now, let's get back to the podcast with the one and only Gail Macrae.
By that point in time, so that's April, May of 2020, we had already had a peer-reviewed study put out by one of the highest Stanford docs in the United States, one of the Stanford researchers. Bhattacharya is his name, and he's now working for this administration. So he did a study on the death rates, he was trying to get down to the true mortality rates of COVID. And so by April of 2020, he'd released a study analyzing, I don't remember how many people now, but a lot of people in California. He did he gathered their results and checked their blood to see if they had antibodies for COVID in order to determine what the actual case fatality rate is. So how many people actually died? What's the percentage rate of death from COVID? And his results showed that they were between 0.9 and 1.7%, I believe, which is comparable to influenza. So I saw that data. Everyone had access to that data by April of 2020. So coming back to this conversation about, we can't do respiratory treatments because we might get the staff sick. If the death rate from COVID is the same as the death rate for influenza, and we've never in our lives withheld those kinds of respiratory treatments from people who had influenza, there's no rational sense. There's no sense in it. So they chose to withhold it. They gave up a phony reason, and it wasn't based in science or logic. And people were so afraid that they just accepted those regulations. But like I said, I talked about the homeschooling background. The other thing I didn't tell you is that I worked in Africa for a year as a nurse. So I was delivering babies and working in a hospital in rural Africa where we had very little access. And that experience really changed my whole engagement with patients in a way that it stopped me from having irrational fear reactions to intense situations. Because working in Africa with no access, you learn how to make it work. And having that kind of experience really taught me how to not become a victim of the fear mentality of, oh my gosh, this patient might code or die or whatever. You just have to figure it out. And so a lot of these tactics that we were being exposed to during COVID just really I wasn't afraid. I was able to step outside of the fear of what the media was saying and what a lot of the organizations, the medical organizations were saying, and just analyze the data. Because I was trained to analyze the data, because I'd done the nurse practitioner education. We spend a whole semester learning how to analyze research and how to make it.
Because it's science.
It's science, that's right. And so because I was in that program, I had access to all the research. So, as soon as I'd hear the media say something, I'd just get onto my school site and pull up the data and start reading it. And then, and during that time, so that's when the Pfizer data was released too for their vaccine in October. And that was another situation where it's okay, well, I have the data on my hands. I'm looking at it. A plus B does not equal C. The conclusion of the paper doesn't match the data that's in the actual research. So we're not being given the honest truth of the safety and efficacy of either of these things. So I knew that with the case fatality rate. I knew that with the Pfizer data. And again, it was because I wasn't coming in with a predisposition of fear, and B, I had my hands all over the data, and I love to analyze data. I just love to do it. I'm just like, yeah, give me that data. I'll read it and I'll like pick it apart. So I did that with one of the papers. I got myself in a little bit of trouble when they started recommending the COVID vaccine to pregnant women because I was part of the oh gosh, am I going to forget the name of this group? It's a national group of nurse practitioners and nurse doctorates, PhDs in nursing in the field of obstetrics and gynecology. It was like, it might come to me. But I was part of this group because I was one of them. We're on an email chains, and some of the nurse midwives were voicing concern. They were saying this is experimental. We're being told to recommend this to pregnant women, but it's not ethical to recommend an experimental injection to pregnant women. We've never done that in the whole history of medicine. Why are we doing it now? And
that has never been done before, ever?
Never. It's actually, before COVID, it was considered taboo. And if it was done, I mean, you couldn't have gotten away with it. The only reason they got away with it is because people were so afraid. It is known in the medical organizations that we do not give experimental vaccines to pregnant women ever. So that, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's in like the code of ethics for the OBGYNs. Like, you don't do it.
Because you can do harm not only to a mother, but to a child as well.
Correct. That's correct, because it can lead to the death. And so we've seen the fallout with that. Like in the 1960s, women were given a drug for morning sickness.
Oh.
I forget the name of it. It's not coming to mind right now, but it ended up causing severe birth defects, and it skipped a generation. So the women would end up having these babies that were severely abnormal. And so that was another one of the leading components to why we don't administer experimental or unknown drugs to pregnant women, because the fallout is so drastic. It's generational. It's multi-generational.
It's life-changing.
And the same thing is happening with this COVID vaccine. One of my good friends, Michelle Gershman, she was a labor and delivery nurse here in California, and her hospital released the data to the staff members about the changes in infant mortality directly associated to the onset of administering the COVID vaccines to their patients. And the hospital admitted in this document that before the COVID vaccines, she was seeing 1 to 2 fetal demises per month. Sorry, 1 fetal demise every 1 to 2 months. So it's less than 1 fetal demise per month. After the rollout of the COVID vaccine, they were seeing between 20 and 23 fetal deaths per month.
20 times more.
More than 20.
And how many babies were delivered in that hospital per month?
Thousands.
Thousands.
So she's got the data. She just launched a lawsuit on this because there are multiple OBGYN whistleblowers on this as well, seeing the increased rate of fetal demises directly linked to vaccination status. So the lawsuit was just launched within the last month, and I'm going to help them as much as I can with data and resources, because I have a lot. Because that's all I've done since I left the field is blow the whistle and connect and collaborate with practitioners and wellness providers all over the United States who are willing, who have the courage to stand up and say, this is wrong. We need to talk about it and do something about it. So that's really the distinguishing feature here. So during COVID, right, I was in that hospital watching my colleagues just cower under the pressure. It was peer pressure.
Nurses only or doctors too?
All of them. I think that the doctors, the more that I learn about what it takes to become a doctor, the more I feel pity for them. We got an increase in patient admissions. All of that started within 1 week of the rollout of the COVID vaccine to the public. So she was witnessing, I was witnessing, both of us independently contacted our management and said, hey, we're seeing a dramatic increase in drug side effect. We need to document this so that it can be recorded and researched. My friend, she was actually told, if you report these side effects, we will fire you. I was told, no, we can't report those because we cannot prove that they are being caused by the vaccines. I was receiving 3 to 4 phone calls a day from my staffing department begging me to come to work every single day. What does that mean? They were desperate for staff. This hospital has had 3 times more admissions than we've ever had since the hospital opened their doors. I went and spoke to all of our city officials publicly, and I told them what was happening in the hospitals, and I informed everybody about the things that nobody wanted to report on, and I got silenced there too. Do you know how many people I met who they themselves or their partners were targeted and destroyed for curing cancer? A practitioner who was curing cancer, they didn't want him to continue working because his work was changing the world, so they set him up. Videos planted on his computer.
Child porn.
Yes, I am of value enough to tell the truth no matter what the cost.